share stories of my own. And main thing, I also read the Bible. And how is everyone doing today on July the 11th, Saturday? How's everyone doing on this Saturday? I hope everyone is doing great and having a great, blissful day. Okay, let's get into the word. Chapter 16 of Proverbs. The preparations of the heart in man, and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes, but the Lord weigheth the spirits. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. The Lord hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil. Everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. By mercy and truth, iniquity is purged, and by the fear of the Lord men depart from evil. When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues without the right. A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directed his steps. A divine sentence is in the lips of the king. His mouth transgresseth not in judgment. A just weight and balance are the Lord's. All the ways of the bag are his work. It is an abomination to a king to commit wickedness, for the throne is established by righteousness. Righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. The wrath of a king is as messengers of death, but a wise man will pacify him. And the light of the king's countenance is life, and his favor is as the cloud of the latter rain. How much better is it to get wisdom than gold, and to get understanding rather to be chosen than silver. The highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He that keepeth his way preserveth his soul. Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be of an humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. He that handleth a matter wisely shall find good, and whoso trusteth in the Lord, happy is he. The wise in heart shall be called prudent, and the sweetness of the lips increaseth learning. Understanding is a wellspring of life unto him that hateth, but the instruction of fools is folly. The heart of the wise teacheth his mouth, and addeth learning to his lips. Pleasing words are as an honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healthy to the bones. There is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. He that laboureth for himself, for his mouth craveth it of him. An ungodly man diggeth up evil, and in his lips there is as a burning fire. A froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separateth chief friends. A violent man enticeth his neighbor, and leadeth him into the way that is not good. He shutteth his eyes to devise froward things. Moving his lips he breaketh evil to pass. The hoary head is a crown of glory, if it be found in the way of righteousness. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty. He that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. The lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. The word of the day. Now I'll be sharing a story called At the End of the Rainbow. It's the story about this woman named Toni Pace. She's like around her late 20s, like 27, 28 years old. And she had not too long had a miscarriage. She had lost her first child, had a miscarriage. Her and her boyfriend, I gotta think of his name, hold on. His name is Bobby Ruffin. I just thought about it. The Lord bless me to remember it. His name was Bobby Ruffin. And Bobby Ruffin and Toni have been trying to make a baby for years. Have been trying to have their first child for years. Toni had a miscarriage. And this one miscarriage, it left her with depression. It left her dealing with depression. She was like often like really sad. And the only way that she's able to like kind of cheer up is like when she's like home to herself. inside their house, and inside this room, Bobby was supposed to paint the walls like this soft pink color. Was supposed to paint the walls this soft pink color for their child, because Tony was hoping in her heart that this child that she was gonna have was a little girl, but she ended up losing this baby, and it really touched her heart, and it left her like depressed, and she would like lay in this room on this bed that she had fixed up for her future daughter. She had it fixed up, but the walls wasn't painted pink yet. She wanted Bobby to paint the walls, but Bobby was just not in the mood to paint the walls yet, because he hadn't told his girlfriend that he had lost his job recently. He had got laid off, and it was just something that he was embarrassed about. He was not ready to tell Tony that he had lost his job. And cause Tony, she had a job of her own, but she would make it home way earlier than Bobby did. And Bobby had not too long lost his job. He just got laid off. And he had his job for years, and it really bothered him a lot. And he just kept this secret like to himself. Like his close friends like knew about like him losing his job. He didn't have a lot of friends, maybe a few. One of them he like shared like a job with, but like his co-worker was like one of his friends, but like he just had like a small circle of friends. And Bobby Ruffin, he also deals with extreme anger, a short-tempered type of person. I guess I would say a short fuse type of person, like someone like a ticking time bomb that could just get angry from the littlest thing. I try to whisper, but I'm gonna just go ahead and talk in my regular low voice. He was a short fuse type of person, and Tony basically was walking on eggshells around the house. And he never had hit Tony, but there will be one part of the story where he actually will place hands on Tony for the first time. Viewer's description is advised. Yeah, but they lost their first child, him and Tony, and he was devastated by it too. And Tony, you know, it left her depressed. Like, she really wants to be a mother. And she starts, like, she'll also, like, either invite her friends over or go over her friend's house. One of her friends was this lady named Grace. And Grace had this child named Enid. Grace had a daughter. But Grace had issues of her own in her family. This story ain't about Grace, though. It's about Tony. And Tony really wants a daughter, and she kind of like got close with Grace's daughter in it. Like one day when she had came over right along with the rest of Grace's friends, and they were all sitting at a table playing cards, you know, shuffling cards around and stuff. And Tony had watched it. Grace just taught it to Enid any kind of way. She had yelled at Enid. Enid was opening up the refrigerator door to look for a snack. And Grace like, shut my refrigerator door. Like, she went off. And like Enid like closed it back and like tiptoed like quickly to her bedroom. She was like a small little girl. Enid is like around the age of 12 years old. She was a small 12-year-old. And that was Grace's only daughter. And Grace had issues of her own. All I could throw in, long story short, about Grace, she broke up with her boyfriend. She had issues with Enid's father. It's just some deep issues between the two. And she had, once she had broke up with Enid's father, she had developed a relationship with this other woman named Mavis. And they had already like a violent, explosive relationship of their own. And Enid absolutely did not like Mavis. Like, Mavis, like, she did not feel comfortable with Mavis being in a relationship with her mother. You know, little Enid didn't. Like, she, like, and also Grace had lied to Enid and had said that Mavis was her sister. She lied to her daughter and said that Mavis was her sister, when the whole time her and Mavis were lovers, lovers. But anywho, back to Tony. Tony was sitting at the table with the other girls, and she had watched it. Enid walked to her bedroom, tiptoed to her bedroom quickly, and you know, she was just looking like,
Like, she did not like how Grace was talking to Enid. She was thinking, like, wow, she really talks to her daughter any kind of way, just treats her wrong. And Tony had, got up and said, like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. She told the rest of the girls that. But the rest of the girls, they was, drinking out of, those red party cups and were just doing regular talking. Probably some of them were puffing on cigarettes and stuff, shuffling cards and throwing it down in the pile while talking. Grace was just deep into conversation. She was like, okay, go ahead, girl. You already know where the bathroom is at. And Tony didn't go straight to the bathroom. Tony went to Enid's bedroom instead. She peeked at her head in, and Enid heard the door cracked open like, ear. And like she kind of glanced it up. She thought it was her mother because she had her face buried in her pillow, and she kind of had little tears in her eyes. And Tony was like, so you must be Enid. And then Enid didn't say anything. She just looked at her and said, well, I'm Tony. I'm Grace, one of Grace's friends. It's really nice to meet you. And it, just come out and say like hi, like she spoke back to Tony. And then Tony asked her like, you having a rough day? And Enid was like that. And then Tony was like, well, how about you ride with me? I'm gonna ask your mama, will it be alright if I take you off, with me to the store? Because Tony was planning on taking Enid to like a local spot where she could get her some food, because she thinking in her mind that Grace ain't feeding this little girl. Like, if she yelled at Enid for looking in the refrigerator, then she thinking in her mind that Enid is getting mistreated. So she had asked Grace, like, is it alright if I take your daughter with me off to the store? I'm gonna give her a little candy or something like that. And Grace said, yeah, but you can bring her back after you done doing what you're doing. I don't care. You need to take her off somewhere because she's been pissing me off all day. As long as you bring her back. Because she got she got bedtime. She got time to be in bed too. And Tony took her off, but Tony not only had let Enid get whatever she want out of the convenience store. She was like there's some candy right there, grab whatever candy you want. And Enid, she grabbed like some lollipops, stuff like that. And Tony had ended up taking Enid to like the local McDonald's, Mickey D's, and got her a Happy Meal, a little kid's Happy Meal. And Enid was happy about that. Of course, it's a Happy Meal. She was happy about that, but she was also kind of sad. And Tony was like talking to her and stuff. She ended up the reason why Enid was sad, because for one, her father is not in her life, and she just hates that Mavis is around her mother's house. And for two, she had like this baby doll that she used to carry around with her. It was like this baby doll who she named Poppy Seed. It was a little nickname that she had gave it. Well, when she was at school, the substitute teacher had took this baby doll that she always carried around on her. She took it away from her. It was this mean substitute teacher. The real teacher was like off of work that day, and they had to get like a sub to fill her seat in. And this sub was mean. This sub, all she was ready for is like for the bells to ring for lunchtime. That's what she was waiting on. And like she had like these fake long nails on, some heavy makeup on her face. Like she just was just like had a mean spirit on her. And when she saw when she saw Enid with this baby doll in her hand, she was like, she cussed it at Enid. Yes. She cussed it at Enid and told her like she know well that she ain't supposed to have no baby dolls in the classroom. This substitute teacher cussed it. And none of the students reported her. None of the students told what she had said or anything. Maybe they were scared of her. But Enid was flabbergasted. Enid was shocked when this woman came up and snatched her baby doll out her hand. And I'm gonna tell your teacher I got your name, on the roster, on the clipboard thing where they be having all of the students' names written down. Says you're gonna tell on Enid for having a baby doll in the classroom. And that hurt it, and she never got her baby doll back. The teacher ended up confiscating it, temporarily. But when the original the substitute teacher I meant, but when the original teacher came back, she ended up giving that baby doll back to Enid. But on that day, Enid didn't have her baby doll with her, so she was kind of sad while eating her Happy Meal. And Tony was just letting her know, like, everything will be okay. There's nothing to worry about. He said, I almost had a little daughter. She would have been the same age as you, but, I lost her. And Enid asked her while, dipping her fries in the ketchup, she said, did it make you sad? And Tony said, oh yeah, it made me very sad. I cried myself to sleep. I always wanted me a little daughter. And she'll like, my boyfriend hates it when I brings it up all the time. Bobby thinks that's all I have on my mind is the baby this and the baby that. And Bobby does think that. Bobby gets tired of Tony coming up to him about, painting the walls in the room that they supposed to have for their future child, but she lost the baby. And but Tony no, Enid isn't gonna be the only child that Tony is gonna get close to. It's gonna be this other little girl named Raven. Her name is Raven Tyson. I had to think back. Raven Tyson is a little bit older than Enid. Enid is 12. Raven is like 14 years old. A little bit older than her. And Raven, she's into the streets. Raven gets raised by it was either an aunt of hers or her grandmother. Her mother basically walked it out of her life, and she don't know who her father is, so she don't really have neither one of her parents in her life. It's really like her grandmother, who is already sickly, and she's trying all she can to keep Raven out of the streets and keep her head in the books and stuff. And sometimes if the grandmother can't handle her, she would turn her over to her aunt, Raven's mama's sister. But Raven's mama's sister, she has children of her own, and she feels like Raven is like a bad influence to them. And Raven just runs off in the streets and just hangs out with the wrong crowd, with other kids, other little girls who is, getting into petty crimes and stuff like that, and is a bad influence to Raven. Doesn't have her best interest in heart, I guess is what you say. And Tony ends up getting close to Raven, and it was one day when Tony had ran across Raven, and it was like right by like a store when Tony was riding on Bobby's car. She had rode on Bobby's car to like a pharmacy like area to get some personal stuff, and she ends up running across Raven. And Raven was saying had came up to Tony and told her like how hungry she is, and Tony was like, oh, you didn't eat nothing, like where's your parents and stuff like that. And Raven was like, well, I ain't have no parents in my life. I just want me like $1 or $2 so I could get a sandwich or something. And Tony had dug into her pocketbook and had gave Raven some money. Just say it like this, Tony just ended up running across Raven, and the rest is history. She gave Raven some money, and she got really close to Raven. Raven, she ended up taking Raven out to eat, just like how she did with Enid. And Raven told about her life and everything. And Raven also has a younger sister as well, but the aunt keeps up with the younger sister. The younger sister is probably like 5-6 years old. Raven, of course, is a lot older than her. The aunt keeps up with her younger sister, but she cannot keep up with Raven. Raven is just into the streets, like I said before. Like, she stays into trouble. She's kind of a trouble child, or what you would call it, a problem child. And the grandmother couldn't really handle her. But Tony just looked at Raven as a misunderstood child. Raven Tyson was just looked at as a misunderstood child who just folks need to grow close to and get the understanding of what's going on up in her mind and what she's going through and everything. I don't know. I try my best to explain it. But and Tony also shared about her miscarriage with this Raven girl. Like Tony has a habit of when she getting close to people, she already of course told all her friends, Grace and all of them knows that Tony had a miscarriage, had lost her child. But she told about something so personal like a miscarriage. She told it to this little girl, Raven, this 14-year-old girl who she met and just growing close to. And she told about her relationship, between her and Bobby as well, like what's going on between her and Bobby, and how Bobby, sometimes easily get angry with her and stuff, especially if she talks about the baby, who she had recently lost. And Raven know all about that, which was, a bad mistake. And it was also a mistake when Tony had started welcoming Raven into our home. The reason why I say it was a bad mistake is because Raven had a mouth on her. She was known to being disrespectful, talking smack, not having respect for people who was a lot older than her. She had respect for Tony because Tony was nice enough to buy her a meal and, just take up time with her. And also let her start, staying at her place, at her house. It's really hers and Bobby's house, but because Bobby paid the bills, but she started letting Raven, come over. But Bobby had a problem with this because he did not like Raven's mouth. And him already having a bad temper and losing his job and trying to get another job, it, ticked him off. When Tony started taking in some random child who was not their child, he was like questioning Tony about it, like, who is this little girl? Like who is this you starting to let come over here? This ain't a homeless shelter and stuff like that. And Tony said, well, she's not homeless. I'm just, taking up time with her. Her mother is not in her life, and she never seen her father. Like she's just child, just need love in her life. And Tony said, well, let whoever is over her, deal with her. Like, you're not her guardian, you're not her mother or none of that. But Tony still kept dealing with this child, basically just brushing off what Bobby was saying. But it was one day when Bobby had came in. He ended up coming in, because since he had lost his job, he hardly, sits around the house. He'll, be somewhere around his friends, or either just hang somewhere to himself and just, have a drink or whatever. And he ended up coming into his home. It was around near the evening time. He ended up coming into his home, and who he saw standing in his kitchen? He saw little Raven standing in his kitchen, looking through the cabinets and the refrigerator for some food. And he paused and stared at her like, what are you doing in my kitchen? Like, what are you doing in here? Aren't you supposed to be home somewhere? And Raven just looked back at him, and she kind of rolled her eyes and went back to what she was doing. I ain't gotta hear what you gotta say. And Bobby was like, hello, you don't hear me talking to you? And Raven said, Tony said I could come in here and do whatever I want. Or Tony said I could come in here and look for whatever I want, help myself at home. And Bobby said, well, this ain't your home. Bobby said, well, this ain't your home. You want to go home, then you need to walk some blocks to where you live at, because this is not your home. You can't just make yourself at home in somebody else's home. That's what Bobby had said. And Raven said, how come it ain't no food in here? You supposed to be the man of the house and ain't got no groceries or nothing in here. She was saying this all to Bobby. Raven was saying all of this to Bobby. Like, how come you ain't buying no groceries up in here? And then Bobby was saying, it ain't none of your business what's in my cabinets. It ain't none of your business what's in our refrigerator. As a matter of fact, close my refrigerator door, close the cabinets. But Raven didn't. When he had said that, she left the cabinet doors open, and she left the refrigerator door open. And she just left out of the kitchen and went to the back, calling herself trying to go into Tony's bedroom. But after closing the refrigerator door back and the cabinets back, Bobby had went to the back to stop her. Like, you can't come in here. This is my bedroom, mine and Tony's bedroom. You're not allowed up in there. Like, you want to go somewhere else, you go in the other part of the house. And Tony was saying, not Tony. Raven was like, you don't tell me what to do. I could do whatever I want, like Tony said. Like, and first of all, where is Tony? And Bobby said, I don't know where Tony is. And you was standing in my house. You keep bringing up everything about Tony. I pay the bills up in here. I pay the bills. I'm the man of the house. I wear the pants in the relationship. So this is basically my house. Tony lives here, but I pay the bills, and you have to respect me. You have to respect me. If you don't want to respect me, then you know you can hit the door. That's what Bobby was telling her. And Tony and Raven was still wagging her head and like, well, you don't tell me what to do. I can do whatever I want. And she was like saying to Bobby like she's grown, and Bobby was like, little girl, you're not grown. And then she said, I am grown. Like she was saying that, but she's just 14 years old. She's not grown. She thinks she's grown, but she's not. And then she was like, you ain't my daddy. Quit trying to tell me what to do. And then once she said that, Bobby was like, yeah, you're right. I'm not your daddy. But if I was your daddy, I'll be putting you in your place. That's what Bobby has said. And Raven like, you ain't gonna touch me. You ain't gonna do nothing to me. As a matter of fact, why don't you, instead of worrying about what I'm doing, why don't you handle your business as a man and try to figure out why you and Tony can't have a baby together. Why did she say that? She said that. And that made Bobby figure out that Tony has been telling this child about their business, about them trying to have a baby through the years. And he realized he was fed up with this Raven girl. So that's when Bobby like stared at her, and like he kind of like turned it as if he was about to just walk away from her. But when Raven thought that he was about to walk away, he snatched her up with the quickness. He snatched her up and jacked her up against the wall. He told her like, little girl, like he was shaking her, and told him like, if I were your daddy, I'd be turning your ASS up. I'll be taking off my belt and whipping your ASS. Like he was going off and was just shaking her up against the wall and had her jacked up to the point where her feet was almost not touching the floor. And that scared Raven. Raven never had anything like that happen to her. A grown up, she never had like a grown up or someone much older than her putting her in her place. Bobby did that. Raven thought that Bobby was going to kill her in there because Tony was nowhere around. So she was yelling out, Tony, Tony, Tony. She was screaming out Tony's name. Good thing Tony was coming up on the porch hearing Raven screaming out. She opened up the door like, Bobby, no, put her down. You can't put your hands on her. And Bobby like looked back at her while having Raven still jacked up against the wall. And then he ended up letting her go because Tony kept saying, let her go, Bobby. He let her go, and Raven dropped it down to the floor, and she took off running out the door in tears. That scared her because she didn't know what the heck Bobby was going to do to her. And you know, Tony was telling Bobby like, you cannot put your hands on her. That is not your child. And Bobby said, well, that's not your child either. You're not the mother of her. You're not the guardian of her. She is not welcome back in this house. That's what Bobby was saying. That's what Bobby was saying about Raven. And, yeah, that scared Tony when she walked in and seen her boyfriend jacking up the little girl against the wall. But, yeah. And, it was one day where Bobby realized that his anger was getting out of control. It was when he tried to do something nice with Tony. He tried to do something nice with her. Like they Tony was trying to do something nice with him. I'm switching it around. He was, not in a good mood like always. He was not even in a good mood. Tony was trying to cook. She was trying to cook up some food. And cause she's been getting food from like her mother's house, and she was trying to like cook up a meal like for her and Bobby to eat together. She wanted to have like a candlelit dinner, just have a romantic time with her boyfriend. But Bobby was just not in the mood, and he ended up confronting her, asking her like, why would she, tell their business to Raven, the little girl. And Tony said, well, I just got deep into conversation. I can't help, when I think about the baby. And then Bobby, while hitting his fork, on his plate of food, he'll like, the baby this, the baby that, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby. That's all you think about is the baby. You don't think about how I'm feeling right now. You think it about the baby. The baby, this is everything about the baby is all up in your mouth. And then he said, "And you keep coming to my face about painting that room." He just went off on her. And Tony tried to calm him down, but it made him more angry. He said, "You don't know how I'm feeling right now." And I forgot to throw in, Bobby also had, a lot of anger built up inside him because he had tragedy going on in his family as well. He had went through a lot as well as a child. And growing up, he ended up losing his brother. His brother ended up getting unalived by somebody else. And he also had recently lost his father as well. He didn't really have the best relationship with his father, but he had recently lost his father, but he was really close with his brother. It hit him hard about his brother, and that what left him as a short fuse type of person. So he was just telling Tony, like, she don't care about his feelings. She's always coming up to him about the baby. She always coming up to him about painting a room, redecorating the house. He said, I'm just getting tired of that S word. I'm getting tired of hearing about the baby and about painting the room and stuff like that. Won't you just stay up out of my face? And, Tony was trying to follow behind Bobby when Bobby, went into the room that was supposed to be for her daughter, and he started messing up things. He broke the crib. It was like this crib that Tony had got from a yard sale. He broke it. He had broke up a lot of things inside the room and broke out the windows. Tony was trying to stop him. And she cried. She cried and was like yelling, "I'm like, Bobby, stop it, no." And then he had grabbed like this teddy bear thing that she had. And that was probably the only thing that he did not break yet. But he did end up tearing that apart because Tony was trying to grab it out of his hand. But ended up ripping apart the inside of the teddy bear. Pieces of cotton had flew all over the place. And Tony just dropped on her knees like, "No, Bobby, why are you doing this?" And then Bobby, after destroying the room, he was about to get his keys and just leave off somewhere. He was just angry. But Tony was scared that if he go out there that he might end up getting himself into some trouble by how angry he was. So she had tried to stop him from leaving out. She wanted him to talk some more with her, but he was telling her to get out of his way. And she wouldn't get out of his way. So he ended up grabbing her face like this. He ended up grabbing her face, and he ended up having a hold of her face and backing her up into the bedroom, and then putting her down on the bed like that while got her face, and had let her know that if she don't stay out of his way that he will hurt her. And Tony, it scared Tony. It left her in tears. And Bobby had ended up finding the keys to his vehicle, and he ended up just leaving away from the house for a while. And Tony was just hurt. She seen how messed up the room was that Bobby had messed up, and she was definitely, devastated with the torn up teddy bear that she had for her future daughter. Like, she just wanted it to have this baby, and especially have the room built up for the baby, and Bobby messed it up because of his anger. But he ends up coming back home. It was like real early in the morning. I'll say he ends up coming in real early in the morning. It still looked like it was dark. And when we were coming in, Tony was picking up like pieces of glass off the floor while sniffling and wiping her eyes. She was picking up pieces of glass off the floor and other stuff that were broken up by him. He was just coming in and shutting the door. And he just flopped it down in the chair in the living room with like a drink in his hand. And he called Tony over, like, "Tony." And Tony like lifted her head up. She said, "Huh?" and he was like, come here, we need to talk. And when he had did that, he told her to sit in his lap, and he kissed her and he apologized to her. He apologized for going off, messing up the room, and that he will fix the room, sooner than later. And when Bobby had took that moment and had started to like calm down and realize that his anger was getting out of hand, because when he was also on the road driving, and speeding up, he had almost hit somebody with his car, and that scared him. It well, not really scared him, it kind of shocked at him and kind of woke him back up, touching reality again. He was so deep into like his anger that he did not realize that he was speeding on the highway and was about to hit somebody with his car. But he ended up coming back home calm, and he ended up apologizing to Tony. And when you calm down and start to have patience, when you calm down and start bringing patience and no kind of anger and happiness into your life, good will come your way. And that's what ended up happening with Bobby. He ended up fixing this man's car. This man's car had broke down, and this man was kind of wealthy, had some money, and the man was asking Bobby for his name. Bobby told him like his name was Bobby Ruffin Jr. And the man has told him his name, and that he had owned a couple of businesses, and that he would like for Bobby to like work for one of his businesses. And Bobby took it as great news, like, yeah, I would love to have a job. I ain't got no job right now. And the man ended up handing Bobby the car. That was good news for Bobby. He was happy. And so of course he came back home and told the good news to Tony, and had like, man, we gotta go out, we gotta celebrate, we gotta do something. And Tony was like, oh my God, I'm happy for you, baby, I'm happy that you got a job and stuff like that. And he was like, get your stuff up, get your purse, wear something nice, put on some makeup, we gotta go out, we gotta do something great together. And that's what they did. Bobby went all out his way trying to have like a beautiful night with just him and Tony. And he ended up not like a fancy smancy type of restaurant, but him and Tony did end up sitting in like a eatery place, like a local eatery place, and ate some food together. And they had like a drink together inside the car. Yeah, like he had like this cheap wine that he had got from the store, and he like had like an extra cup, like to pour some in for like Tony. And him and her was just enjoying that and talking and laughing about some good times and stuff like that, just chatting it on, to the point where Tony ended up falling asleep. She ended up falling asleep on the passenger side with the cup still in her hand. And Bobby looked it over and seen how peacefully Tony was sleeping. And he had grabbed the cup out of her hand, tossed it out of the window, and drove straight home. And he ended up getting out on the driver's side and getting Tony out on the passenger side and carrying her off into the house. And she had woken up in the bed. And when she had woken up, she had seen some candles were lit. And she had seen Bobby sitting right by her and, rubbing his hand against her hair. And she looked it up at him and smiled. And all I can say is that not too long after, Tony was ended up pregnant again. She ended up pregnant again, and this time she was pregnant with a little girl. And Bobby ended up making up his mind and fixing up the bedroom that was supposed to be for their baby. He ended up fixing up the bedroom, painting the wall and stuff, fixing up the table. He ended up doing the painting and stuff by himself. But as for like the table and cribs and stuff, he ended up letting a friend of his, help him out, like with getting them things like that for him. But the other stuff he did by himself, the painting and fixing the window and stuff like that. And Tony loved it. She loved it that the bedroom was fixed up again for their child, and she was happy that she was pregnant again. And also with Raven, well, uh, Raven had ended up getting into fights into the streets, and her arm had ended up broken. Her arm had ended up broken, and a person who had did it, it was a boy who had did it, and the boy was like the boyfriend of this girl who she had fought before, and he ended up breaking her arm to keep Raven from fighting his girlfriend. He got into the mix of the girls fighting and breaking Raven's arm. Raven did not want to tell it on this boy because this boy was, into like a gang and like hung around with other gang boys and just had a bad reputation with himself. But Tony and Bobby had ended up making sure that Raven had made it to the hospital, and her arm was indeed broken. She had to, wear a cast on it. And Tony had ended up taking Raven to her aunt's house because the grandmother had got so bad out sick that she ended up in the hospital, and she had to take Raven to the aunt's house. But the aunt didn't want to have nothing to do with Raven. Like, she is too fast. She is getting out of hand. The reason why her arm is broken because she ain't had no business being in the streets with the rest of them troubled children. That's why her arm is broken. The aunt just was like saying, like, I don't have time to be, I'm not about to be wasted time trying to raise that little girl. I'm not her mother. I'm just her aunt. Her mother should, be in her life, etc. But Tony was, asking the aunt, was it okay for Raven to stay with her to the time being? And Raven wanted that too. Raven really wanted it to stay with Tony. The aunt didn't care. The aunt was like, yeah, you can keep her at your place as long as she's staying in school and she ain't, out there hanging in the streets and stuff. And Tony said, oh, I'm gonna make sure that she doesn't do that. And once Raven started staying with Tony, she had stopped it hanging in the street. She started getting her head in her books, and her arm did end up healing. And Bobby didn't have a problem with Raven staying around the house because Raven started having good behavior around him. She had quit talking back, and she one day had walked into like the room, and she seen Bobby. No, she had walked into the room that was supposed to be for the baby. Tony's stomach had grew out big. She was pregnant, and she was like, wow, this is a pretty room. It's a nice color. It was like a soft pink color on the walls and stuff. And the baby's crib was, sitting at a particular spot. And Raven like, it looks beautiful in here. Who had made up this room? And Tony said, oh, Bobby did. Bobby and, some of his friends had brought in the stuff for the baby. It looks nice, don't it? And Raven like, yeah. And she was kind of a little bit iffy about coming up to Bobby and telling him that he did a good job with painting the room, because she don't know what Bobby is going to say to her, because she thinking about that time when she was talking back to him and he jacked her up against the wall. But Bobby at the time was fixing the sink inside the bathroom. It was like he had to tighten up some pipes underneath, the area. Like how the sink is made in the bathroom, and then when you open up the cabinet part underneath the sink, you can fix like the pipe. Well, he was doing that, and he had the tools right by on the floor by him, and he like heard some footsteps, lifted his head up and seen that it was, Raven, and he went back to fixing. Like, do you want something, Raven? While he was fixing on the thing, like, is there something you need? And Raven like, no, I just wanted to tell you how great of a job, you did a great job with painting, the baby's bedroom. And Bobby was like, thank you. He was like, thank you. I try my best to have my daughter's room looking nice. Have the baby's room looking nice. And Tony had ended up having a baby, and it was just a beautiful baby girl. Her and Bobby and Raven and the baby. And the baby's name, I bet you wonder what the baby's name. The baby's name is Heavenly Pace. Um, Tony thought of that name. She wanted to name it that, and Bobby liked that name too. And it's basically the end of the story called "The End of the Rainbow." And the reason why I call it the end of the rainbow is because you know how they always say at the end of the rainbow you'll find a pot of gold with the so-called leprechaun. They might be real, I don't know, but you know how you say you can find a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Well, for Tony's case, with Tony, at the end of the rainbow, she found a rainbow baby. Because if you don't know what a rainbow baby is, a rainbow baby basically is a baby that is born right after the death of the previous baby. That's what they call the rainbow babies. A miracle baby. Miracle babies can also be babies that was probably close to, not making it, but they end up making it. But that's what you call a rainbow baby. If you look it up on Google, it talks about it. But yeah, Tony basically had a rainbow baby, and that's why I call this story the end of the rainbow. And if you made it to the end, thank you so much. Thank you for the support. And I hope you like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't. If you're new here, welcome to my channel, Willa Candy's channel. On this channel, like I said before, I share stories just like I did a while ago. I read my Bible. I do ASMRs, eat food, etc. And thanks for dropping by. And if God's will, there'll be more videos. And I hope you all have a great day. And please stay safe out there. Please love one another. Treat everyone with respect. Please drive safely out there, Lord. Please drive safely out there, y'all. And God bless you all. And thanks for making it to the end of this video. Goodbye.